for environmental sciences, in which we are going to discuss an important topic that is called UN initiatives on environment and ecology. Though this particular topic has already been covered through numerous other topics, which we have discussed by the name of environmental programs of United Nations. But here with this particular specific topic, we shall be able to talk about certain references through the UN WTO's or United Nations particular website, and we are referring the website for the academic purpose. So let us start discussion of this particular topic. As far as initiatives are concerned, UN had one of the premier institution in the capacity of the international regime, and they are therefore responsible for the entire globe for the and ecological related initiatives. So, major initiative taken by the United Nations by the name of UNEP, that is United Nations Environmental Program, and this particular program is under certain initiative and activities of United Nations throughout the globe, and this particular process has uh, been developed by the different countries, followed by different institutions, as we have discussed in the previous sessions of United Nations environmental programs in great depth. Now we are going to talk about such initiatives. So without any delay, we can talk about the first such initiative on environment or ecology is basically based on climate related issues, and that is climate science for adaptation policies. So World Adaptation Science Program is a global initiative which provides direction and coherence of the international level of research. Whenever we talk about the international climate on science and adaptation policy, this is the era where we have to focus about the environmental related issues, where the entire world community is basically participating on to the adaptation of the scientific policies related to climate change and certain scientific mechanism adopted by the uh, numerous scientist societies of the world under United Nations. In this research and major direction provided initiative by the United Nations scientific societies are to be followed, and there are many systems or subsystems being developed by the United Nations by which they are actually ensuring the participation of the international community for the development of the climate science and adaptation of policy as a nation, as a country, or as a specific organization under United Nations different charters and different programs of environmental protection. Here, there's one program initiative that is Provia, and it is related activities we are going to discuss. Definitely, we are referring the United Nations website for environmental program called Nations Environmental Program that we have discussed. This is one of the initiative into the field of environment and ecology throughout the world, because we all are sharing common future of the world, and as an important ingredient of an environment, climate is such an important criteria to be talked about. Under Provia, there are different related activities to be talked about. They may be called up as recent activities or recent initiatives taken by the United Nations. And adaptation and resilience is one of the important criteria under Provia and their activities. Whenever we talk about the adaptation, any work or any international resolution that we have took out, that needs to be reciprocated in such a way where adaptation by the different governments and the international communities needs to be there. They also need to integrate such programs so that the climate change and Climate change related national policies and development strategies may be decided and defined by the different countries, and they can insist this strategies further to be implemented at a different platforms. This also helps the countries to identify new ways to adapt their climate change scenarios. Throughout the globe, we have witnessed more segregated policies. And in terms of policy making, the international community, mainly the countries, are responsible for the national policies, and national policies in environment or national policy related to the adaptation and resilience in terms of ecology and environment is a great area to be talked about, and therefore United Nations initiatives are very important for making the other governments and integrating these environmental program at a larger scale or capacity to be adopted by the fellow governments under United Nations Charter. If we talk about climate and clean air coalition, this is another initiative by United Nations which is very important to be talked here, because this particular initiative had create a lot of positive awareness towards environment and environment conservation, because climate is an important area to be talked about. And when we are talking about the environment is a common criteria that we all are following. Therefore, the Climate and Clean Air Coalition is the uniform uh, steps of the different government. They need to be united. They need to unite or coordinate between the civil society and business communities so that we can improve the air quality and protection the climate further. Because business that we are talking about here is the international business or international global business, which is having an impact on the productivity of the concern, so as the product has the impact of the environment as well. If we talk about the further step towards the environment, which is called as climate finance, climate finance is to be referred as a local, national, and transnational financing by which the drawn public and private alternative sources to be financed. So these are certain initiatives which are basically for financing certain issues which are related to the climate efforts. Whenever we are segregating climate to the very local, the national or international boundaries, then we need to understand there is a great need of having the finance for its local needs, its national or international needs, and therefore the integration into the field of financial integration is required. Whenever we keep on talking about climate finance refers to the local, national, and transformational financing, which is a substitute of an initiative of corporate funding or local funding for the climate issues. The next important initiative which is been taken by the Environment program under UN, that is Climate Technology Create Network. That is a great time or deal to be taken by the different government authorities at the international corridor, that they can integrate, and then not only they can integrate, but they can also promote the acceleration of transformation in terms of technological advancement. Because whenever we keep on talking about the advancement in technologies and their networks, this is actually profound into the area of climate change or environment or environmental concerns related to the international reputations. Whenever we keep on talking about climate related technology centers and networking, this is a great area where the international authorities, especially the countries and their manpower development aspects needs to be relate with. And this is an area where acceleration for the transformation of environmentally sound technologies related to low carbon or climate resolution development needs to be developed. Further strengthening this particular dialogue, this can create more advanced technological environment by which the international community can further resolve certain important serious matters which are very important in nature in terms of environment. Next important initiative that has been taken by the United Nations under UNEP, that is mitigation. Whenever we talk about mitigation, this is actually a profound program which helps the countries transition to renewable energy sources. Whenever we talk about mitigate, that meant for you need to go to the roots and to generalize your energy needs, and your energy sources needs to adapt it such a way where energy efficiency measures and reduce pollution and access clean energy finances needs to be talked about. So whenever we talk about mitigation, it helps the countries for transition towards renewable energy sources, because energy is an important issue to the international community and to the greater population of the world. We are in need of per capita consumption of fuel or energy is marginally higher and higher. Therefore, there is a great need to look out the certain uh, alternatives in terms of renewable energy or adaptation of energy deficiency or efficiency measures by which we can one way we are going to resolve the problem of the energy and the waste management that we have already talked about, and the different aspects. And on the other hand, this is going to talk about the problems of air pollution and access of clean energy finance. So clean energy finance is one of the initiative by which we are going to strengthen our uh, problem related of the pollution, which may be strengthen the institutional capacities of the different countries, by which they are going to mitigate the alternative sources of energy, and they can largely uh, look after the benefit of the whole human society. Next initiative, that is REDD plus, and that is called reducing emission from the deforestation and forest degradation. Friends, students, this is one of the prime area to be talked about, because whenever we talked about reducing emission and deforestation, forest degradation is an important criteria to be talked about under the United Nations uh, environmental protection programs. The Paris Climate Agreement recognized the central role of forest in achieving the goal of keeping temperature as below the 2 degrees through mitigation options that aims to reduce emissions from deforestation, and forest pledges their nationally determined contributions. Whenever we talk about RED, Red Plus, this is an emission related program or initiative where we are one way we are going to cut short the emission of the carbon. On the other hand, we are going to upgrade deforestation, or we are going to have the emission of deforestation or degradation of uh, for deforestation related aspects. Relationship between the emission from deforestation and forest degradation. There are two standards to be talked about, by which the emission of the carbon and temperature maintaining conditions, because the carbon is the element by which the planet Earth can presumes the climate related or temperature related issues, which may create certain harms to the uh, globe by the name of global warming. As we talked about, there are almost 118 countries have included forestry and land use measures as a part of their pledges and national determined contributors. So whenever we talk about NDC, that is national determined contributors or contributions, these are some total of those practices by or initiatives by the countries or under the United Nations, where they can ensure the upgradation of the environment and ecology, followed by the emission of the carbon, or lower downing emission of the carbon or carbon dioxide mainly, or by which we can adjust at least average 2 degrees Celsius temperature, which is a very good solution to the entire global warming problem of the international reputation. So these are certain initiatives that we have talked about, and I guess As a student of environment science, we need to understand whenever you would like to have more specific knowledge about this particular program, kindly refer the last video that we have talked about, and or you can also refer certain soft copies, notes, and details that we have discussed under United Nations. Those are free source and open source and easily available to the students. Even you can refer the initiatives and activities of United Nations Environmental Program. So by this, we are going to conclude our session here. And as I'm going to concluding this particular session, we are going to uh, place. We are going to talk about that only initiatives are not going to be very sufficient, but these activities or proactive initiatives at local